Hi, everyone. I'm really glad you all are here. I know you're all joining in from different places, different time zones, and probably a lot of thoughts and tasks in your mind running right now, be it your morning or evening. So first of all, thank you for choosing this time to spend with us. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Kinga Malec. Kinga works closely with individuals navigating career and life transitions, especially in moments where things feel uncertain or overwhelming. What I really appreciate about her work is that she doesn't stay at the level of reflection, but she helps people actually move forward. And with that, I would love to hand it over to Kinga to guide us through the first part of the session.
Thank you so much, Dee. And so before we start, I would like to take 30 seconds, and don't worry, that's not a meditation exercise, but it's going to be a little reset. Because I know how those sessions usually go, and I know you're here, but your mind might be all over the place or somewhere else. So just let's take a breath and think about one thing that's been taking up your mind recently. It could be one decision that you need to take. It could be something you've been postponing or something that's unclear to you and you're stuck on it. Whatever it is, we won't solve it right now, but just acknowledge that it's there and set it aside for the next 45 minutes. So, really promise to yourself that you're going to stay present and give your full attention to this session. Because this time is really for you to think clearly, do little self reflection exercises, and leave today with some concrete takeaways for you. And for the second thing, I would also ask you if you're getting distracted by your phone notifications, your laptop notifications in the corner of your screen, also, I'll give you a few seconds to mute them so that you can remain fully present with us for the next 45 minutes.
And as we do that in the chat, just type in one word on how your mind feels right now as we dive in. You could be excited, busy, confused, distracted, tired, overwhelmed, whatever your feelings are. Let it come in and share with this group we have here today. It's very important to know what you're feeling and aware that it's a feeling. It doesn't define you. It always keeps changing. So I see a lot of different kind of feelings, curious, overwhelmed, exhausted after work, drained, excited. Great. Let's move in.
So let's set little expectation for that session. So just to make it clear, this is not think the process or staying positive. We really talk about what's actually happening when you feel stuck, when you feel like you don't know what step to take. There will be a little science and even more practice. We're going to show you some exercises that will help you move on, find some concrete steps. So the goal is to really find for you how to move forward, even if everything around us is not clear. All right. So with that, let's get started.
Amazing. Let's dive in. Kinga, I know you more than I think 1 year or so, but please share with our audience how did you end up helping professionals and students navigating career and life transitions?
So my background might not be obvious because I actually spent 14 years in a corporate environment managing shopping malls, and I went through several transitions myself. That means including challenging roles like leadership roles, changing countries, but also changing directions. Now, today I work as a coach because I like working with people who are at the same crossroad as I once were, and I really support teenagers, students, professionals who feel stuck or uncertain about their next career step. I help them navigate the job search, the career change, but most of all, and I think that's also how you know me, Dee, is that I really help people move forward. So I will very much help you sit in with your thoughts, reflect, come up with different ideas, but most of all, I will give you the gentle nudge and help you get away with some concrete actions and start moving forward because I truly believe that the help I can give you is to really get going.
Yeah. I have lots of questions for you today, but to give it little structure, I would like us to go from chaos, clarity, and action. And my first question to you is, what's behind this feeling of being stuck that so many people are experiencing, especially right now with so much going on around in almost all aspects?
So, first of all, I think one myth we need to debunk when people talk about being stuck is that they feel about not having any options. But the truth is that usually we remain stuck because we have too many options. We have too many variables that are occupying our mind. So if I look at the people I work with currently, for instance, they're thinking about career decisions, social obligations, expectations from their family when it comes to their career choices, and then the global situation that's changing every day, and how will that affect your own career choices and potential situation on the job market. And so when all that sits on your mind at the same time, it makes it very difficult to take one decision, because one decision actually starts getting divided into numerous decisions. So if you think about what kind of job should I search for right now, the questions come: what if the job market is not right for the job search? What if I don't like that job? What if I'm not happy with the working environment? What if I don't perform well? And so suddenly, one, not simple, but let's say one decision about what kind of job you should go for really becomes a bundle of 10 decisions. And when everything starts feeling important, you don't really move because it's just overwhelming. And so, with that, I'm kind of wondering about the people that are tuning it with us today. Where would you say you are with maybe one important decision in your life right now, or in what phase of your life are you right now? Do you feel you are in overthinking phase? Do you feel like you are more in the waiting phase? So you start having an idea of what you want to do, but you're hoping there will be more certainty, there will be more support from others. There is this natural waiting for overthinking, two for waiting, or three taking action. Where would you say you are right now?
I think I am kind of stuck because in my field there is a lot of AI buzz going on, and I feel I'm lacking behind. And I what courses should I take to um, upskill myself and all this, like, and yeah, like because my job is mostly contract based, so will I be relevant after some time or not? And what kind of work I want to do, like all the things you said, I resonated with that. So I think I'm none of one, two, three, but I'm stuck kind of.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, I see we have messages in the chat as well. Two people for one and one in already taking action.
And from your experience, Dee, because you also, and I don't only mean your personal, but also professional network and ShineQuo experience that you have, does this reflect what you are currently seeing with students and early career professionals?
Yeah, definitely. Around the overwhelmness of so many options, the feeling of how to be relevant in the market. Because when I'm working with students, they're building their career, they're in the starting point, right? So at that time, until now, during school, during their college, they have learned everything about getting the job done. But now if that job is being done by AI, then how to move forward? How to make yourself be relevant in the market and survive. I think it's how to basically survive in this market.
Mhm.
It's a lot of uncertainty, as you mentioned as well, and I'm curious with that. What do you feel? Why does it tend to lead people into so much overthinking? Because that's something I've seen. That's something we're discussing. This uncertainty we have, it leads to overthinking and us feeling stuck.
So while we were discussing and preparing for that call, and we were talking about actionable exercises we can give to our audience, I remember we also had this discussion about awareness, that it's good to make people aware why they're overthinking. And so without turning this into the next, biology exercise, we thought it might be useful to give you a little science. So just a few minutes, but I think once you also understand how your brain works and you have this awareness, it will be easier for you to manage the moments when you start to overthink. So let's see what's happening inside your brain, because it's essentially a prediction machine. And there are two parts of your brain that are especially relevant for understanding of overthinking. One is called amygdala, and the other one is called prefrontal cortex. So think of amygdala as your internal alarm system, because it has a very simple job. It's supposed to scan for risks and keep you safe. It doesn't really care if the risk is real or imagined. If something feels uncertain, it's seen as a potential threat. So something like changing job, which is objectively speaking, not really dangerous or life-threatening to you, but it starts feeling risky to your brain. And then you have the other part, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part responsible for planning, for decision making, for thinking things through. Ideally, those two parts work together. So one scans for risk, and the other one helps you take decisions. And that works when system is clear, when system works well and situation around us is certain and predictable. You assess the situation, you decide, you weigh your option, you act. But when things tend to change a lot, when things are uncertain, like in current times, during job search or during career transition, your brain is not getting the clear signals to act. So your amygdala stays activated all the time because it keeps looking at all the risks. It might not be safe. What if this goes wrong? What if this variable pops in? And so your prefrontal cortex tries to solve it by thinking even more. And you end up in that loop. Your brain sees the risk, you start thinking, and then because you don't find certainty, your brain keeps scanning for even more risk. And that's actually what overthinking really is, this sort of loop. You detect the risk, you start thinking, because you don't have the certainty, you go back to scanning for even more risk. So it's not that you are bad at making decision, it's just that your brain is really trying to protect you in a situation when there is no perfect answer because there is no real certainty. So instead of deciding, you keep generating scenarios. What if I do this? What if I regret it? What if I don't see all the options that are open ahead of me? And the thing is, because your brain remains active, you feel like you're making progress. But in fact, you're actually going in circles, right? You keep on thinking about the same topic over and over again, and the progress isn't there. And also, what research shows is that when amygdala is activated all the time, it actually reduces the effectiveness of your decision making. That's why it is so much harder to act the more you overthink, right? Like, let me repeat this. It becomes so much harder to act the more you overthink. And again, this is the biology behind it. So it's very important for you to be aware of that. When you think, oh, maybe if I spend some more time thinking about that, I will get more clarity. Well, the more time you get stuck in that loop, the more difficult it will be to actually dare to take the first step. So that's about explaining how your brain works. But then, of course, let's think about another layer. And underneath all that, there's usually a fear of being wrong. What if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret it? What if other people see me making the regretful choice? And those decisions then stop being just ordinary life decisions about your jobs. They very often feel like statements, like identity statements about who you are as a person. You know, what will people think when I do something wrong? And because you don't want to take the risk of being wrong, you remain in this overthinking stage, right? So, again, it's important for you to keep in mind this biology element, the loop that your brain stays in, but also think about the identity layer. What is the underlying fear that prevents you from actually taking a step? And I wonder, Dee, when you were starting ShineQuo, I mean, you were also like a fresh graduate. It was also a huge undertaking to start your business. How did this transpire for you, this overthinking, being afraid to take the step? Did you face something like that at all?
Definitely, honestly, a lot of times, sometimes still right now, I think it stays. It's important to understand how to get off that loop. And I really resonated with things you mentioned about risk of being wrong. And also it reminded me of that feeling when you think about that you will lose time if you do something wrong. So we just chase perfectionism, and in order to get perfect, we just we don't realize that we're actually losing time of not even trying it. Right. So I do see that feeling in a lot of other students as well, especially the type A personalities, I would say, when you always you have 100 ideas, you want to have things perfect before showcasing things, especially be it your projects or to have that first post on LinkedIn, to create a network or anything of that sort. So I think not chasing that perfectionism is really important, but that feeling and disassociating yourself from that feeling and just taking that first step is so important, and not thinking about that you will lose time if you do something wrong, because the key is you will learn from every step, everything you do, and you will learn more from failures than from success, right?
Absolutely. And I
Success
love what
doesn't
you said.
come direct. Yeah.
What you said, like you don't lose time when you do something wrong. I really love that part. And I think it's so important to let that sink in, that don't see it as a wasted time. When things obviously here started beginning of March and the whole conflict started, it was the same.
Mhm.
People were in that mode of like, wait and see what will happen. And
Mhm.
only now, after 7 or 8 weeks, I can see people getting out there, going to networking meetings, really having those discussions about how can we support one another to move, to get started,
Yeah.
instead of just being in this wait and see position.
Yeah. And as you talk about the uncertainties and overthinking in like, different regions, different ways, how how do we actually start creating clarity from there? So at different parts of the world, there are different issues, but then we like, we are humans and we have to move forward. We have to see what we can do next. So how can we get clarity around there for especially for people who have mentioned about like feeling stuck who are feeling stuck right now?
Yes, so I think this is a good moment for us to really move to some exercises to start in practice, seeing how you get that clarity. Before we do that, I will also share in the comment box just some articles on the brain science, just for those who would really like to explore the overthinking part and understand the biology a little bit more. But now, again, yes, let's go back to the topic of how do we get clarity. And so we will propose you now 3 exercises that are in a way interconnected, and especially when worked through together should really help you get better clarity. So one will be about how do you differentiate between fear and facts. So what are the objective facts versus what might be sometimes irrational fears that are just in your head and are preventing you from taking a decision. Then once you think about that, we're going to then show you also, once you see things that you can actually influence and act upon, and what are the things that you cannot really control. Because very often we see that people make this step of finding the facts, but then they get stuck by focusing in 80% on the things they cannot control anyway. Hence, they don't make any progress. And finally, we'll also help you differentiate between internal and external influences. So, what comes really from your internal needs, wishes, desires, and view of yourself, and what is actually the external influence, the noise that sometimes prevents you from acting because you are so affected by that. So, we'll also give you some time for little self reflection, although we will also share those exercises with you here so that after the session you can come back to them. You can spend some time self reflecting and really have more time to properly deep dive into those exercises. So, you think like it's a good time to get started with the first exercise, Dee?
Yeah, that would be great. I'm excited.
Perfect. So let's start with fear versus fact. And again, as I will be speaking also, and if some of you find something that really resonates with you, or you can already think what fear and fact is in your current personal situation, a decision you're facing, please feel free to write it in the comment box. So most decisions that we take are really blocked by the story we tell ourselves, by the fears we might have that are about the future, and not really about the facts that are about the present situation we're in. So I'd really like you to take some time to reflect on that, to think about one decision you might be delaying or you might be stuck on when you entered our call today, and ask yourself what in that particular situation is a fear and what is a. And to help you a little bit, I will give you an example, or 2 examples, in fact, that I had from my recent work with clients. One would be more from students navigating their first job search, and another one would be from mid-level professionals, so someone who really thinks about a big career pivot in their 30s. So, for instance, for a student searching for a job, I hear that comment, there are so many candidates out there who are better than me. And so when you think about what's the fear and what's the fact, the fear is there are so many stronger candidates on the job market, and I probably won't stand out with my profile. Now, when we discuss pure facts, you don't really know all the candidates out there, do you? That's the first thing. And secondly, the companies don't really hire the best on paper. They hire for the cultural fit, for the personality fit, which isn't the same as having the best CV. So keep that in mind when you think about what is the fear and the fact in your situation that you're trying to resolve right now. Now, if you're more like a mid level professional thinking about a career pivot, the comment I always hear is, what if I lose stability? So the fear is, if I leave my current job, I will lose financial stability. But the fact is, you can plan for a transition, right? You don't need to make a hapless move right now and quit tomorrow. You can explore options while being employed, and you can prepare a financial plan, build a savings buffer to feel more certain for this period of job transition. So again, a fear and a real fact that you should look at. And then very famous topic which comes irrespective always, what will people think? And so the fear here is people will think I'm making a mistake, I'm choosing the wrong career, or I'm going backwards in my career. For instance, if you decide to go into a more junior job than you were before. But the fact is, and I will say it very directly, the fact is that most people really are focused on living their own lives. And those who matter will will respect a thoughtful decision taken by you. So those are just the examples, and I wonder for your situations, guys, what would be the fear or the fact? Is that something you would be willing to share, or maybe do you have something?
I just added that question in the chat. Would love to get some answers from our audience today here. What is the fear you have right now? Because again, writing it down really helps to for us to
Mhm.
recognize it. And I think you gave a very perfect example around the job market, around uh, that fear of losing a job or the fear of thinking that there are so many perfect candidates out there and we don't have a chance to stand out. Those are I think biggest fear I see. The job market, the career is the biggest stress right now amongst be it students or professionals. Everyone is really stressing out around what to what step to take next, how to keep up
Mhm.
in the market. Anyone who wants to unmute or share and
Yes, I
chat?
think I would like to add to what Dipanshi said, that the fear is like, yeah, just to put it in one line, like I'm not as technically fit as the current job market wants, let's say. So how to bridge that gap and all the overthinking loop again and again. And so
Okay. And do you want to also talk about the fact? What do you think is the fact here?
I think, okay, so I'll just share what I think. These are my personal opinion, but like a lot of I keep reading news that AI keep deleting code bases, databases, and recently there was a leak of Claude code and blah 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 blah. So I think it's not as
Mhm.
efficient as humans today. So that's a fact for sure. But I don't know. I think that's a fact what I can think of right now, and maybe yeah, that's the only thing.
Okay. And keep your feelings as just reflect on it. Keeping your fear and fact together. And the intention of the session is to make sure that by the end of next 30 minutes, we have one small step we could take. But I also want to address some comments we have. One person has mentioned that I have one fear that I have right now is making the wrong choice between the ideas that I have. I struggle with choosing which direction to go into. Definitely, I think even I go with it, having those ideas in which direction to go. Then there is another one, having money to pay bills, finding a better job, global market, not that good. Okay. One fear is that AI is going to replace us in the market, and there are going to be lot of layoffs outside, so better to perform in the current market. But the fact would be that AI is not actually going to replace, but the job market is going to be reframed. We will still be needed. I love that Dipali is probably the only one who mentioned about a fact. And it was so easy for, it is generally so
Mhm.
easy for us to think about fear, but we forget to talk about the facts. Would love to know your
Yeah,
perspective,
this
Kinga,
comment
how
box
you
is
feel.
really powerful. It's absolutely powerful because, as you said, it really shows how easy it is for us to think about something that will block us, and how difficult it is for us to find the fact that should be this booster for us to actually move forward. Now, if I can just briefly divert from our discussion and comment on some of those things. So,
Yeah.
this comment about making the wrong choice between the ideas, this is the fear, but the fact is, we're not choosing one job for life. Usually, the first job after university
Mm.
is your first venture into the working world. It doesn't define your career path for life. It's just for you to learn and see, is this really the destined path for the long term? So I think once you take out this time element, you understand that you're not really taking a choice for your whole life, and don't see it as a choice for life, because once you see it as a choice for life, that's when it really becomes extremely stressful decision. Once you say, this is just the first job, if I don't like it, I can find something else in 12 months or 6 months, it really becomes a bit easier, because again, you're not putting the pressure on yourself. So I would really encourage you, for the fear about the wrong choice, to think about the fact, and the fact is, I'm not choosing a job for life. I'm not going to stay in that job for my whole life. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. So it's really important to state that fact, not only to think about it, but just like you wrote about the fear, write yourself at home in your journal, say it in front of the mirror, but really mention that fact, so that you remove this pressure of thinking that you need to get this decision right. So that would be really for the comment about the wrong choice. And around AI, I would also say that the fact is that AI will not take your job, but the truth is, someone who uses AI better than you probably will. So it's really also about removing this stigma of AI coming after our jobs, but just saying, yes, it's coming, so we need to understand how to work with it. The fact is that you can attend trainings for free, online webinars. There are so many online sources about AI. You can upskill on that. But what you can really do is rather thinking, how can I use AI to my advantage in my field of work, so that when I go to start work in that field, I can use my soft skills, my transferable soft skills, with AI together, rather than just seeing AI as something that competes with me, because it will never compete with the soft skills you're bringing to the table. So I would also encourage you to combine those points, and not just see AI as something that comes uh, to replace. And then for the fear around, balancing entrepreneurial project with a full-time job, the fact is, what support system can you build, or I can build a support system to manage those two things better, and think about that. Think about what support system you can create around having the job while building the business on the side. Do you do it by yourself, or do you create actually a support system where you feel like those two things will balance out? So in that specific case, I would encourage to not only think about you and yourself, but really also, what is the wider support network you can tap into to be able to balance those two things without the fear that it's all on your shoulders.
Amazing. And on that point, I would love to share my personal experience here, because it reminded me of a time when I was thinking that I am starting my entrepreneur journey. I'm building a business, and um, there, I would not say a fact, but like, a myth that entrepreneurs, or like, if you're building a business, you will have sleepless nights, you have to like, work 24/7. But as I was working in the wellness space, I am working in the wellness space, I was always like, it would not make sense if I'm not actually working on my well-being and creating a business out of it. So I used to feel overwhelmed, but then I started giving it another chance to like, make sure that I'm sleeping on time, I'm working on my own well-being, be it food, be it sleep, like, basic necessities. And it just changed how my mental health was throughout the day. But being in the present and like, uh, stopping those fears, but rather thinking about the fact that it is important, everything is connected, our body is connected. It just changed how my day to day looked like. Defining that fear and fact is just very, very powerful. I have felt it myself as well.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
Uh, I know we are short of time, but I love the discussions we're having here. I would love to jump in on action. As we talked about clarity, I know you have more tools around, like, how to get more clarity. Maybe we can share it with our audience later on after the call. But as we all are here today, uh, what what can we do to take action if we, like, if we understand our
Yes, so
fears, our facts, how can we move forward?
exactly, we will share maybe before I jump into action, I'll just do like a 1 minute recap of the Abel tools, which I think would be interesting, if that's fine for
Yeah, that
you.
would be great. Yep, that would
So
be
the
great.
other two things that we wanted to show you as exercise is also the control map. And control map is really about what you cannot control. So you have no control over it. You actually can influence it, or you can act on it immediately. So cannot control, can influence, able to act on it immediately. It's about you seeing what are really the areas where you should focus your attention on. Because again, I often notice that people get stuck in the cannot control phase. They look at things that are beyond their control rather than focusing on things they can genuinely influence. So for instance, students very often tell me, oh, I don't have enough experience, right? And what's out of their control is the years of experience required for the job they would like to have, is the experience of other candidates, or even the job description very often being unrealistic, a graduate program for people with 10 years job experience and so on. So you cannot control that. But what you can influence is how you present your university projects, your internships, volunteering activities, maybe a family business that you were helping at when you were a teenagers. So you can influence that. You can influence the soft skills you're building, and you can also influence how you explain your potential. Because remember, companies don't only hire the profile they see today. They look at you as per your learning potential, your potential to grow, get onboarded, quickly find solutions. So this you can influence. And what you can act on immediately, you can find an online course for free that will upskill you in an area that you find relevant for your industry. Or you can reach out for informational interview to someone from the company you are interested in. This is something you can specifically act on immediately. So I would really encourage you to sit down and, in the context of the decision you're currently taking, do this split of what you cannot control, what you can influence, and what you can act on immediately, because that will make you more intentional about finding this action to move on. So that was the second tool. And then the third one was really about understanding the internal and external influences. And this is really about understanding what you want versus what others expect of you. And there's one powerful question that I very often use in my coaching sessions. And I would also leave you with that question for self reflection after our webinar. It's really about, if no one had an opinion, what would you do immediately? What would you do now? So if you really didn't care about the opinion of others, what would you do for the decision that you're thinking, for the job you're trying to get, for the entrepreneurial activity you're thinking of? Ask yourself this very honest question, because that also helps you mute the external noise. So once you have those three tools together, fear and fact, understanding what you cannot control and what you actually can influence and act on, and what truly comes from your desires and from external influences, I think you're getting much better blueprint for the next step. So what you were asking Dee at the beginning, it's action. How do you get there, right? Because those three tools will certainly help you with clarity. I guarantee you that they will help you with clarity. But clarity does not automatically lead to action. You may know exactly what to do, you may know what you want to act on, but you still don't move. And the reason is fear. You strive for perfection, you wait for better conditions, for the job market to bounce back, for whatever certainty that you are hoping to get. But as a beautiful quote says, waiting for certainty is one of the most sophisticated forms of procrastination. The certainty will not come, right? So you don't need a certain plan, but you need a move. And the move comes from finding a small, specific, and immediate step that you can take. So it's not about changing your career completely. It will be, I'm going to message one person from the industry I would like to go into. That would be a small step that you can commit to in the next 24 hours, right? So really, I would like I would like to encourage you to think about this micro action. What is one small move you can commit to today after this webinar, and you can commit to doing it in the next 24 hours. Can you think of something? And I'll let you reflect on that, and I will give you a couple of seconds space so that you can think quietly about that. And then I will be very curious to hear from you, Dee. How did you work with those small actionable steps when you were building your business?
The more the responsibilities you have, the more overwhelmed you will be. It's part of life. But just imagine it to be like, if you are here today, think about a person who is also doing all these things, academics, as well as career, but they're also married. They also have kids. Do you have more time or do they have more time? And you
Mhm.
always try to think about, we don't have time, we procrastinate, we think that 24 hours are not enough, but the reality is we cannot have more time than what we have today. So the more we break down our bigger goals, the better it gets for us to be like realistic and actually execute it. And one thing that really helped me understand what I can do in 24 hours is
Mhm.
writing it in a sticky note, a small
Yes.
sticky note. Because if I'm writing a bigger goal, for example, one example you gave was sending a message to someone in our industry. But if our goal, like that could be one action, but if we put a goal of connecting with 10 people in
Mhm.
24 hours, that's unrealistic, right? The first step is we have to like talk to one person. So we have to see everyone has different pace. We have to see what is applying, what is easy for us to execute in 24 hours and take that, like make it so granular and smaller enough that we can achieve it so that we can get that momentum, right?
Yes. And I think
And
this achievable, doable part is extremely important, what you said. It's like if you know you struggle to move, find
yeah.
a goal that's really doable for you in the next 24 hours. So
Mm.
don't say you're going to reach out to 10 people because that will immediately sound overwhelming and you'll find an excuse not to do it. If you say, I'm going to send one message, that objectively speaking doesn't sound a lot to send one message in the next
Yeah.
24 hours. So also be
Yeah.
kind to yourself and really find a step that won't be overwhelming for the start.
Yeah, I think the first very small, in order to take that first step, it's very important to stop that overwhelming part of your mind. And you have to break down that like that bigger goal into small enough that we think, oh, this is something we can definitely do. Like there is no problem in doing it. And once you achieve it, maybe 1 day, 2 day, then you increase those numbers over time. So yeah, and as as you know, you have been part of the journey. That's the core of how we have built ShineQuo as well. As students or professionals, they connect with life coaches. We help them convert those sessions into actionable items that they can see. They can that gets reminded for them every session after every session, and then they can work on it with the coach. And I could see that, reminding them those
Mhm.
action steps is just so powerful in itself as well.
Absolutely. And you really touched upon extremely relevant point of, okay, even if you take this one small action, there is no guarantee after the one small action you're going to
Yeah.
sustain the momentum, that you continue, that you're going to take the second step, and the third step, and the fourth step. So there's always a question of how do you make sure that you keep that momentum when you finally dare to take the first step. And it's true that it's very important to think what is the right structure for you to help you get going, right? Some people might rely on something I would call informal structure. So, meaning you could talk to your friend, to your partner, to your parent, your sibling, someone you trust, and and get their help in staying accountable, right? So, for instance, you ask them to really contact you in 24 hours and ask you, did you do what you committed to? Did you reach out to that one person from the network, right?
Mm.
So, or you sit down once a week and you discuss the progress you did on the job search, for instance. So that's really the informal network. The thing with the informal network, of course, is that sometimes they don't stack, or you focus on other elements of your life, so you don't always feel like there is this one sparring partner next to you that really helps you remain accountable. And that's where, coaching, the work we do with ShineQuo, when I work with students, is that I can see that sometimes they need someone like me, someone external, to really hold them accountable. I had a session with a student yesterday where, she was really in that overthinking phase and she was talking to friends and family, but she said, actually, after an hour with you, I knew that I will leave with a very clear action and a very clear homework, and I will get out of the overthinking. So sometimes you need an external sparring partner because that increases the accountability, but also the regularity element. The fact that you know you're going to see me in 2 weeks' time will also motivate you to actually implement the actions that we agreed in our last session. So I think it's important for you to think, what is the right structure for you? Is it the informal structure that you think will work, or do you actually believe that having this external support of a coach can help you move faster and better, not even faster, better and more sustainable?
I do see, like, understanding your kind of, like, what kind of support you need, you want, trying out different kind of support systems, and then seeing which one is best for you, which one is actually helping you move forward, is just so important.
Absolutely.
And I would want to come back to our reflection question because I think that's very, very powerful. What can you do in 24 hours? And I would love to know from our participants, like, we talked about the fear. We all have something in our mind that is making us feel stuck. We would love to give you a couple of minutes to think about how can you make yourself unstuck? What can you do in 24 hours that might not take you to the end result, but then that can get you started? And correct me, Kinga, or like, feel free to add something that I
I
am
really
saying.
am curious if you guys, based on this little, I know we didn't have much time, but I hope, the little breaks gave you some time to self-reflect and inspired you. And I'd love to see what is the kind of little task you're going to find for yourself and action to implement in the next 24 hours. So it would be amazing if you shared it with us.
Someone mentioned about doing some certifications or upskilling in AI. So, what is that? Maybe like, considering that example, if like, if you think about upskilling, because that's something common that we see in our audience, in our participants. So, what can you do to upskill yourself or to make yourself a little closer to using AI? Or something you
I
could
have a very
do?
specific example from an hour
Okay.
ago, in fact, because I had a really good call today with my partner, like business partner, and our potential collaborator. And we were preparing an email following a call with the potential collaborator, what we want to do, what kind of activation we want to do. And so my partner drafted an email and then she sent it to me and she just said, maybe you want to do some little tweaks. And I did those tweaks and sent it. And she was like, wow, I really love the little nudges that you did, the little tweaks that you did. And then I explained to her what kind of prompt I gave to AI. Like I really told ChatGPT what was my impression of the potential collaborator, what is the nature of the language I think they would like, what is it that they would expect from that collaboration, and so on. And based on that, I asked ChatGPT to really refine the email and explain to me so that I learn for the future. It refined the email the way it did. And it gave me actually a really great explanation about, okay, this is a bank, so the language has to be adjusted. You want it to be a collaboration and not just one way exercise. So the language has to be more collaborative and less, we want something from you. So it's very specific. And in fact, based on that, my partner was asking me, okay, how do you do it? And I sent her a link to a great training from Harvard, which is for free, about prompt engineering. And I actually did it right coming to that webinar. I sent her a link to like a free prompt engineering class because I was like, the better you learn how to write the prompts, the
Yeah.
better the quality of the output you're going to get. So even things like that, a simple prompt engineering class can already help you work more efficiently.
Yeah. I'm sure at least the people who are wanting to upskill themselves, they would love to get that link of the course you just mentioned and share it with your business partner. So I would love to have that if you have it handy.
Yes,
But
I
I
will
see
actually.
yeah, that's a great example of like, getting started because I feel especially like, these asynchronous courses or programs are a great start. And then you can do it anytime, right? Like you can have us like, plan to rather than doom scrolling, whenever you feel bored, just watch a 5-minute video, right? Whenever like, before sleep, maybe you want to watch some video. And I see the ones who mention about growing their business. They mention that they want to play 5-minute video for clarity on growing the business. That's it. Just and maybe even before this step, I feel knowing which video to play. Because sometimes, like, we think about, okay, we'll do a course, we'll do AI course, for example, or we'll do a brand messaging course, but then we end up spending 1 hour on trying to find which course to do
Mhm.
that. Right. So maybe the first step would be, even before playing a video, what is the video you want to play? That's the first step, knowing what to do and then setting some time to do it.
A little advice, Danita, when you say I felt like a burden to my old one, but I like informal structures. I think, once you have this new accountability body, it's always good to set the ground rules. Sit down and really say what you expect from your accountability body, what they expect from you, how often you speak, what are the rules to avoid the situation that you start feeling like a burden. And set communication rules. Like if you feel like I am becoming the burden, please come back to me and let's discuss how to adjust it. Because I think the sooner you set those rules, or like when you set them at the beginning, you sort of avoid this situation where someone might be disappointed, or maybe this person doesn't even see you as a burden. Maybe it's just you feeling that it's a burden. But discussing openly those communication rules and ground rules at the beginning will definitely save a lot of time afterwards.
And since we have a lot of people thinking about career specifically, think about how, like, whom you can network to who are just one step ahead of you, or what is that one course that you could do. Um, and that can keep you going forward. Amazing. And with that, thank you so much, Kinga, for giving us
Thank
this
you so much.
time. This was an amazing conversation. Also, thanks to all the participants who kept this engaging and interactive. We hope that you got at least one thing out of it around how to, like, move from either chaos to clarity, and then, like, clarity to action.
Amazing. Thank you also so much for a great exchange, Dee. And thank you guys for tuning in and being with us today. And I hope you really found something useful for yourself and a step to take in the next 24 hours.